frontbencher, looks after communications for federal Labor. Let's go to another federal MP now. Anne Webster is the Nationals MP for the Mallee electorate in regional Victoria. She joins us from Mildura. Thanks for joining us again, Anne. Do you have sympathy with people who are protesting against lockdowns and restrictions?
I think sympathy is probably a little strong. I think that we understand why people are protesting. They don't want to be in lockdown. But we can't afford to have a childish, and as many politicians have called it already, a selfish attitude to what is going on. I think what it does highlight is that we're dealing with risk, and government has a responsibility to deal with risk in a way that is proportionate, that is measured, albeit in a pandemic, and that keeps people front and centre, not political outcomes. And
you've written though that you think governments now have an aversion to risk. Are they being too risk averse in the management of this pandemic compared to other countries around the world?
Well, I think that both socially and politically, we have a strong culture of risk aversion. I mean, you think about all the risk mitigation plans that are part of every board, every school, every office and government, and pandemic plans, risk mitigation plans. They show us just how committed we are to avoid risk or to minimise risk significantly. And I think that, it occurred to me this last week as I was reflecting on where we're at, another lockdown, people can't see family, and some of the behaviour that we've seen in Sydney and Melbourne. And just to me, it's about risk. We need to be able to have the conversation about risk. How much is too much risk? How much are we prepared as a society to face in terms of this risk? Obviously, vaccinations are a key, as you stated earlier, to moving out of this, and we all want that to take place. But, we look at the risk around AZ, and that younger people have not been taking that up. Fortunately, there is a push now because Sydney faces a higher risk. That young people are being encouraged to have AZ. And I just think that there's so much about what we're doing and what we're going through that has to do with risk.
Now, speaking of that then, Campbell Newman, the former LNP Premier of Queensland, has now quit the Coalition, saying that the Coalition has lost the plot on these issues, that it's forgotten about fiscal responsibility, it's locking down and closing businesses too readily around the country, state and federally. He says that the party is not living up to its values. Do you think he has a point?
Well, I think every government is, as I said, risk averse and is closing down business. I mean, our economic position, I'm really pleased to hear the Treasurer say that we are doing incredibly well. We will get out of this. We're miles ahead of most other advanced nations around the world. But, how do we manage this? How do we manage this? I'm not even pretending for a second to have all the answers. I'm just saying that I think, particularly when it comes to making decisions because we don't want to risk political fallout, whether it's shutting down tight, like Victoria, or whether it's opening up and letting it rip, such as the UK, risk ultimately is something that we carry as individuals and as government. And I think the problem is that there's an inverse relationship between responsibility and risk. The more government takes over the responsibility for managing risk for individuals, the less, it seems to me, individuals have the capacity to, look at us locked down in our homes,
people always have that choice. People always have that choice to make the risk aversion decisions themselves. Thanks for joining us, Anne. It's an important discussion.
Thank you.